Hey, it's Chris. One of my favorite videos, looking back at old games. Now, I'm going to say that in terms of crowdfunding, right? Old games, because who cares about old games, Chris, right? But this is a special one. We're looking back at 2 years ago, May. What crowdfunded 2 years ago in May? Where is it? Where is it? Is it still something you're hyped about? Is it still something that you have and you're even playing? This is important to talk about because what happens with it after you click pledge, pay, and get? Too often, play, forget, sit on there forever, collect dust, see you later. But how well are you at getting that stuff? How well are you doing at actually getting stuff that you love, that stays in your collection, that people love to play with you? I had one of those games tonight, recent crowdfunding game. Played it with 3 people. They loved it. Absolutely fantastic. I'm just getting better at picking that stuff. It's painful to look at sometimes. It's painful to talk about. And there's going to be a couple on here that are going to cause some of that pain. But we need to talk about it. We need to look back because also it helps us look forward. That being said, hit the buttons. Tell them Liege sent you. Let's go. Number 1, The Witcher. The Witcher, the old world. One of the first games from Go On Board that I got to actually talk about during a campaign. The first big one, right? And you guys liked it. And this is where we're going right now. It's in the process of delivering everything. The all-in. Everything you need to know. All of the expansions, all of the miniatures, everything that goes along with it. I mean, a whopping. This is absolutely mind-blowing if you think about it from a crowdfunding standpoint. 46,000 people. 46,000 people. And I can't really describe why this one was so much more supported from an IP standpoint than a lot of the other more recent, just almost as big IPs as well. Yes, the pledge level was high. Yes, it raised almost about $7 million US. But something struck the chord here that hasn't been struck since, right? What's the difference between this one and all of the others that have come hence? Because this was sort of the one that led the tidal wave of video games in the last 2 years. It really was. It was a tipping point. We have seen dozens since then. Several dozen. None have really come close to this. And does that just mean that The Witcher is really a bigger IP than a lot of the other ones out there? If you had asked me that a year ago even, I probably even would have said no. But now, I'm probably wrong, right? I mean, the biggest complaint right now is that people have just not gotten their copy yet. It's a little bit of all over who's getting what and who's not getting it. So that's the biggest thing you can say with this. The big, what did you get? Miniatures versus non-miniatures. A very small amount of exclusives, but just an absolute metric freaking ton of content. The biggest thing that I've seen detriment-wise so far with early comments, reviews, and critiques has been there's a lot of downtime if you're playing at a 3 or 4 player count. Yeah, I said that. Yeah, it's not going to keep you as engaged. Yeah, some of the scaling may not work as best, but overall, people seem to think it's fun. Right? 8.1 on Board Game Geek right now. Granted, less than 500 reviews, so take that for what you will, but it's a good start. It's a good freaking start. Again, my biggest criticism, I think, on my video was that it's going to play long. And you can see this player count here, 1 to 5, 90 to 150 minutes. And it's definitely going to easily be that. And so that's the biggest barrier to this so far. And I think the critiques agree with me. Overall, pre-campaign is probably an 8. Post-campaign now, probably a 7. I'm going to be getting it here in a short time, and we'll see. We'll see what the expansions do. Are all expansions created equal? Are there going to be some that are better than others? Where are things going to go? Is this, if we look at another year or 2 down the line, right? Is this going to be as well thought of? And that's another interesting video, because some of these games are still not even delivered. And when we look back at things, when we look back at years as a whole, right? How many of those games are you going to be talking about 5 years from now, right? Like I just played The Quest for El Dorado tonight. That's a game that's 6 years old. It's not going anywhere in my collection, right? You have plenty of those games, but how many at the 10-year mark, at the 5-year mark even, are still going to be that for you? That's the tricky point, and that's why this is fun. Next up, this was probably one of the few, when I did this last video, that I semi-regretted not backing, and this is Stationfall from Ion Game Design. The closest thing, the heaviest version of, say, a mafia coup werewolf style of things that is, again, being really well received. Yeah, it's chaos. Yeah, it's take that. Yeah, there's a lot of learning things to do in terms of playing it, which again makes it more of a heavy, crunchy version of those games I just mentioned. But if you like it, apparently there's nothing out there like this as well. I'm supposed to be getting a review copy here in a little while, so I'm going to have some hands-on. This was probably one of the few games from 2021 but I opted at the time to say I'm less concerned about the miniatures. So all in all, though, this game just looks like a smashing hit right now. Pre-campaign, I was probably an 8. Post-campaign, I was probably still an 8. And if you haven't tuned into any of these videos, there are very few games that pre-post hype have remained the same or just as high as that. So that's how I feel about this, and I just can't wait to actually get it to the table. I mean, the biggest problem with a game like this, right, is if you're not getting games to the table on a regular basis, it's going to be hard to remember all of the rules overhead that goes along with it. Yeah, take it for what you will. I mean, it wasn't a smashing, overwhelming success. I mean, just under $250,000 here, which I take as a success. Again, $226,000 more than I've ever raised on crowdfunding. But 2,700 people for a small company like Ion Game Design this was an absolute smashing success for them. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more from it in the future, because I could see them doing some expansions. They've broadened their horizons into other things as well, but if it's success, chances are most likely on this hobby scene, you're going to see more of it. I mean, that's true of most hobbies. So there you go. Next up, we're going to go over to chip theory. Hoplomachus Victorum. Solo Hoplomachus mythology. It's got your chip theory, so you're getting the premium content, right? This raised almost $1 million, which was a lot more than their other campaigns, especially for Hoplomachus. 5,200 people as well. So it was just, do you need a new version of Hoplomachus? Are you going to get into this? Is this better version? And so far, all signs point to yes. I mean, this is one of the few truly solo-only games that I have considered picking up in my, time doing this channel. One of the few. The other one actually just got released at retail this month as well, so I'll talk about that in a completely different video. But this is one of those that I just go, would I like this? My biggest dichotomy when it comes to this is I like learning games as a solo two-handed sort of situation. I don't always like just playing them by myself, because if you've got kids, sometimes the last thing you want to do is sit down and try and, put that much brain power into things in between. But so far, this is probably, I think, right now, the best rated Hoplomachus game overall on Board Game Geek, which, again, say that as what you will, because the people who are getting this are probably the people that loved Hoplomachus for the majority in the first place. So you have some big selection bias there as well. And if you go over to Chip Theory Games' website here, you can order it right now, $150. That's the one thing I always say. I always give them kudos. If you back on crowdfunding, you get a better deal, period. You always do. Never have any doubts about that with them. Never have any issues with that with them. And I give them a lot of credit for that. But, if you're not sure on it, sometimes it's better to save 15 or 20 bucks and check it out later instead of trying to get it and trying to get rid of it and trying to, keep it. Just all of the stuff that goes with games that you don't want, right? Like, I really would love to get rid of about a quarter of the games in here in this office, but it's hard to get rid of some of those things sometimes. And that's what you're potentially having to do if you're buying too soon. And so this one, again, didn't really have any appeal for me as a non-solo player, but it definitely was tempting enough that it's near the top of my solo-only games if I was to venture in that route in the future. Pre-post, 4-6, 6-4, sort of right in the middle there. If someone brought this and said, hey, Chris, you want to learn this with me? Yeah, I'd say, okay. Am I going to go out and purchase it on my own, though, right now? No. I mean, from all I've heard, better version of Hoplomachus. You like the original? This is going to be better. It's going to be more. It's going to be slightly different as well. Nothing bad to say about it. It's just whether or not it's right for you. And that's what you got to take into account with this. Next up, this one is just on my radar because another crowdfunding campaign for a sequel for this is coming out soon. This is Eldfall Chronicles. The Eldfall Chronicles Northwind is the one that's going to be coming soon. And this only raised $70,000 on crowdfunding with about just under 600 people. And it's like a 2-player, 3-player, 4-player skirmish fantasy, PvP, PvE, co-op, a little bit of everything skirmish style game. The issue is there's like 6 ratings on Board Game Geek or 14 ratings, something like that. And for a game that's been delivered and the last update wasn't even, within the last 4 months. Yeah, that's, kind of a weird thing, especially when you have a new crowdfunding campaign coming up here. So, I went back and here's the crowdfunding page again, and I don't really know what to make of this one. You can see right up here, last update, January 30. And you start scrolling down, and when I look down this, there's nothing at the top of this page that makes you go, okay, what is the set apart for this, right? I just did God tier, you know, Battle for Britannia, you know, those sort of skirmish style games. I don't know. You just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll before you start to get to any actual, you know, non-fantasy, what is this game actually bringing to the table besides the cool looking miniatures? You know, I'm halfway down here and I haven't seen anything from a gameplay content. We've got more miniatures. Apparently these were also ones you had to put together. So you start to still have the models. Again, how is this playing? No, this is all background. There's very little gameplay content on here. And again, when you go back over to the crowdfunding page to the Board Game Geek page, it's got 16 ratings and 10 comments. Forum section, it's pretty much dead. There are no reviews. Videos, yeah, I mean, there's a couple videos in German. So I have no clue. But then you go over here for a second and you go to this crowdfunding page and you have 2,400 people following it. Like, what am I missing? What am I missing with this? I mean, I remember this as a generic fantasy one that came around when it came around, but now and worth 2,400, you know, people following it. I have no idea. No idea. That's a scary sign for a game that's, you know, finished crowdfunding, you know, in 2 years. So is it going to be good? What's the impression of the first one? Buyer beware. That's all I'm saying. I don't think it's bad. There's a couple comments on there that like, hey, this is a super awesome skirmish game. Hey, this is one of my favorite skirmish games ever. Hey, it only takes about 30 minutes to play. But yeah, details, sparse at best. And don't get me wrong, I say that as someone who loves this style of game. But I need more than vague promises and vague descriptions, right? Nothing against it. I just want to see more if I'm going to pay triple digits for a game like this when it's a dime a dozen in that mechanic and approach at this point in this hobby. So yeah, there you go. Next up, my father's work, Renegade Game Studios, one of the few that they've done on crowdfunding apart from like G.I. Joe, I think recently. And this one again was one of those that some games just seem to latch on the community and I just can't explain them. Like Botany right now on crowdfunding. 10,000 freaking backers, almost $1 million, over $900,000 raised on this heavy worker placement where you're a mad scientist creating monsters over the course of 3 generations. Like, the theme sounds cool, but I looked at the mechanics and I looked at the rule book during the campaign and I said, ooh, Liege out, baby, peace out. You know, this is not me. This is way too heavy. And that's the big issue that I think a lot of people have said, right? Like, this is a super heavy game. Nothing against it. It's just one of those things. Again, if you're not a big heavy game fan, this isn't going to appeal to you. I just have no idea what to say about this one. Again, I don't really have anything negative to say. One pledge level is awesome. I love it when campaigns do that. $100 and pick it up at retail otherwise. Just a ton of stuff. I don't venture into this heavy of game usually. So, you know, something like this, Weather Machine, you know what I'm saying, right? Like that's that heaviness level, even though some people are going to argue in the comment section, Chris, this one's slightly heavier than that one. And you can't say that this is, I don't care, folks. I don't know. You know, this is outside my depth and my complexity and my weight, whatever you want to call it, right? Like my weight's only like 172 right now anyway. But that's what you're looking at here. Is this for you? I have no idea. Go check it out. A lot of people have really liked it, but I also saw it was a very long game too. You're talking like 3+ hour games, I think, around that. You know, you've got Darwin's Journey that's just been delivered. You had the big ones like Tiletum as well as Carnegie, which were the best Euros that came out in 2022 for the most part from people. And this one got a lot of attention. This one has awesome production value. I just haven't heard it in the conversation quite as much given the extent that this crowdfunding, right? Like, a Euro game getting 10,000 backers on crowdfunding, right? Worker placement heavy Euro, 10,000 and almost $1 million. That's not common. So why aren't we hearing about it more at retail? And again, that's not my circle. So maybe you guys have been hearing it, you know, more in your circles, but I haven't. It was an easy pass for me. I have no interest in it whatsoever. Can't play this style of game, period. And you know what? Every game is not for every person. I'm okay with that. If you want this one though, definitely give some look-see, but if it's not for you, it's not going to be for you either way. Now we're going to go over to Wise Wizard Games. Robot Quest Arena. Ever see the Comedy Central game where they had like battling robots? I forget what the name of it was, but this is essentially that in a board game form. And you're doing deck building at the same time. And you just upgrade your bot, battle, blast your opponent out, and you're basically the last one standing at the end of the game. But not really, because it's actually a point-based system, not just a elimination style system, which is why I think a lot of people really liked the idea of this. It's like King of Tokyo, only if you went for like an actual end game score instead of just knocking your opponent out with, you know, still a pretty significant amount of take that. It raised almost $500,000 again as battle bots. I mean, was that what it was? I think so. Almost 6,000 backers as well. So where are things at right now, though? I haven't heard hide nor hair about this one. And it reminds me of the other style of worker placement, light S deluxeification style game, where they had painted miniatures in this one, similar to Transmissions. But were you willing to pay for that was also the question. So I love the idea of this one, and I thought it was a great concept. But ultimately, like, I wasn't a big fan of the pricing, as well as just the pre-painted miniatures, like paying extra for some of that stuff. So I ended up passing on it as much as I love deck building, just because I almost prefer the King of Tokyo take that, get knocked out style of things. The other disappointing thing right now is when I go over to this, and again, I don't know the reason and the rationale behind it, but if you look right above my head right now, estimated delivery date is May 2022. Unfortunately, when we go over to the updates here, the mass proof production just was in April. So it's going to be about a year and a half late. So you're going to maybe be getting it by the end of the year-ish, Q4 sometimes. So all pledge data wasn't even locked down for about, you know, just over a month ago. That's relatively significant of not really being that long ago. So like I said, I mean, I think you're talking Q4 at best. So how do you feel about that? Does it matter as long as it's a good game? I mean, it's an interesting combination of things, and I think it has very high potential. But I think it has a little bit lower basement than other games too, just by the nature of some take that, some deck building, and some randomness as well. So can you do that, right? And had a little exclusive, so you know you can always pick up in the secondary market. But I'll be watching this one. But I also can see myself easily passing on it as well. Like pre-campaign, 4.5, 5. Post-campaign, about 5. Speaking of games that are going to be about a year and a half late, we're going to a different worker placement Euro style game from Crafty Games called Buru. If you remember this one, Buru. Very pretty aesthetic style game that I just couldn't get a good grasp on. This sort of a circular board with multiple different rounds as you're moving around from area to area. $100,000, 1,300 backers. 5 rounds, exploring different lands, trying to win the game. Big deluxeified version here. You know, again, nothing against it. With all of the other really, really, really well thought of Euro style games like this, though, I always go, why am I going to get this one over other ones? And the other issue with, if we pull up here, is that this one was also supposed to be delivered in May 2022, not May 2023, May 2022. So we're a year late already. Literally right before filming this, they put out an updated production and they say September-ish, maybe October. They haven't even printed the stuff. So factory's been overloaded apparently. We're going to see where it goes, but you know, if stuff hasn't been printed yet, you're talking the end of May here, going into June, July, August, September, October. So you're talking 4 to 5 months from now. It's probably going to take a couple weeks to print. If everything goes right, if everything's set at this point, then you're still going to have 4 to 6 weeks to ship. And then 4 to 6 weeks to distribute. I mean, yeah, I could see it being September, October. I could also see it being pushed into November, December, if anything else goes wrong. Is it going to be any good, though? I have no clue. This is the one I know the least amount in terms of mechanics and support on the whole list today. But it got $100,000 and it's pretty aesthetic. But is the pretty aesthetic going to hold up with gameplay later on? That's the big question. Now, this is another one. The next one up here is actually sitting on my countertop as we speak from Detestable Games in Draco Studios. I really love their other game, Dinos Riding Dodos. Let me tell you right now, if you have kids anywhere in the 7 to 12 range, highly recommend that game. And this is a similar aesthetic vibe with this one, where you're actually Kiwi tribes trying to do more of an area control over several rounds. I really want to try this one with my kids. My kids have never played anything area control, and it's probably gonna be a little bit too much for my 7-year-old, but my 9-year-old could probably beat me at this after like 2 or 3 games. It's literally sitting on my counter as we speak, and so I just haven't gotten another shrink yet. It's one of those that I've had on the queue for quite some time. Detestable Draco, this is really becoming a good quality run for them. I also have another game like Chicken Run, Chicken Rush, Chicken Battle Rush, something along those lines too. It's a really nice tableau card style game that my kids absolutely love as well. So they're putting out great tweener games right now, folks. Not a lot of reviews on Board Game Geek, but if you're doubting me, Dinos Riding Dodos got the Dice Tower seal of excellence. So don't take my word for this. And if this stays any truer pedigree-wise, this one could be slightly different in a good way as well. And again, this was one where they just kind of sent me a couple of their games and they said, here, let us know what you think. And I've been impressed so far for games that I wasn't really terribly interested in to begin with. I mean, isn't that the best thing though? When you get a game or someone brings a game and you're like, man, let's kind of just see, I kind of have my expectations rather low. And then you're like, whoa, that was actually really awesome. That was really good, right? You know what I'm talking about when you have that. And there have been a few games in my collection that have done that. I remember my first foray, one of my first forays into the hobby, King of Tokyo did that for me. Like eyes just wide open, right? The other one, Dead of Winter, right? Those are my two big, whoa, this is what board gaming can be like. Because I didn't know that up until this point. $100,000, 1,800 backers, nothing to write home about, but $100,000 is $100,000, folks. Area control, chickens, dodos, kiwis. They've got their thing. They're going for it. They're killing it. The production is awesome. Does it need miniatures? No. I actually prefer with dinos riding dodos. I love the wooden meeple guys. They're actually shaped correctly. My kids love the plastic miniatures though, because also the miniatures are colored. But this is just going to be another interesting test to see, is this a good tweener game? Like that's what the really dinos riding dodos is, right? As much as I'm talking about that instead of this one. But I'm happy playing it. My kids are happy playing it. That Venn diagram of games is not large, folks. It's not. And so you can successfully navigate that. I'm just going to do the Wayne's World thing, right? Like, oh, not worthy, and because that's tough line to do, because there are lots of kid games that, I don't mind playing them. It's sort of like if you have kids, right? If you watch the kids shows versus kids shows that are actually entertaining, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? That's what I'm talking about, if you know what I mean now. So I have no idea what to expect with this. I have no idea. I'm excited though, just because of the pedigree. So one of these days I'll have my review out for Dinos Riding Dodos. One of these days I'll have a review out talking about this one as well. Pre-campaign, 2. Copy on my shelf right now, getting ready to play it. 6.5. Again, I'm keeping my expectations low just in case. Could easily see those being surpassed though. So we got 2 more games. EOS Island of Angels. This was another one when I did the 1 year look back last year. Like Stationfall, I remember looking at this one, and this was actually, I watched Board Game Co's video right before the actual campaign ended, and I said, I just don't like it enough. It looks like there's a little bit too much going on for me. Combination of Gray Fox Games and King Raccoon Games. Gray Fox has kind of had some quality control issues. I'm looking at my copy of Ragnarok's, and that definitely had a few issues from that standpoint. I mean, they're getting sort of a little evened out, but I don't know. Just the pirate faring, angels, demons, asymmetric worker placement mechanic, 2 to 5 players, engine building. Some of those keywords are great, and some of those, when I looked at the sum parts total together, I got a little bit, burdensome, and it scared me a little bit. And there was a okay amount of exclusives, so you didn't miss out on that. Pledge wasn't a huge amount, $50 or so for the base pledge. You're getting plenty of content. Another 15 for the expansion. So, it was nothing over the top, but just something kept me from backing it. I don't know what that was. Again, right? Like, you have those games. You look at it and you go, I like it, but it's just not clicking for me for some reason. And that was EOS for me. And again, I love the aesthetic that they've got going on. 1,200 people, about $100,000 raised. When was it supposed to be delivered though? December 2022. So we are 6 months over. Not bad. 6 months. Not terrible. Although, again, these games are finished fulfilling their campaigns 2 years ago though. So for a game that, trajectory wise, they still said it was going to take 1.5 years after crowdfunding. Like that's still a long freaking time, especially one without miniatures or without, significant miniatures, right? Like these are all wooden, I believe, as well. So it's not like this was a huge, massive molding miniature, everything went wrong style of things. So where are we at though in terms of actual updates? So setting sail soon. Shipping addresses are locked and we're going to see it. So if you are a backer of this, I would anticipate you'll probably have it by midsummer-ish. I don't know, when does summer officially start? Anyway, probably end of June is my guess. End of June, early July, depending on where you are in the world with this one. Pre-campaign, again, I was probably like a 6. Post-campaign, I was probably about a 6. Now, Probably still about a 6. I could see this one being a little bit too all over the place, a little bit too much going on, where one or two mechanics don't make as much sense as I would like. So I'm going to have my eyes tuned into this one as much as I can when it actually is delivered, because I could see myself trading for a copy on the secondary market. I could also see myself getting into it more and realizing that, hey, I made a good call and didn't, get this one and passed on it for a good reason in the first place. So wouldn't be surprised by anything at this point with this one. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? Let's talk about it. I've mentioned it previously on the news video. We are now officially 2 years from the finished campaign of Steeped Games Chai Tea for 2. Why are we talking about this? Because if you missed the news video, I covered it there that some astute backers noticed that in April, Steeped Games was dissolved as a company in Canada, which they are based out of. Now, what does that mean? Well, officially, not necessarily anything. But you don't dissolve a company if you're planning on getting stuff done, right? And this was not insignificant. I remember this. This was one of the first ones that said, hey, we can't send you a prototype, but if you pledge $1 during the campaign, you can get a review copy from us. We'll send you a review copy, right? And I was like, oh yeah. And then I looked at the campaign and I was like, oh, I'd love a free review copy. At the same time, it's just not a game for me, right? And I've done that with some of these, right? I've played them and I've said, here's a review, but I'm just not sure I need a review copy afterwards, because that's not why I'm doing this. I have way too much already. My wife was just antagonizing me in front of some people I was playing with tonight about having too much stuff even outside of this room storage. Anyway, but 5,000 backers, nearly $200,000, probably well over $200,000 when it goes to the pledge manager. Well, you'll see. Yeah, update 17 here, right? Update 17 sounds good until you see the date of update 17, October 6, 2020 freaking 2. So, 7 months ago. 7 months ago. 7 months ago. 7 months ago, nearing the end of manufacturing. End of manufacturing. Games moving from the factory towards fulfillment. Production-wise, we've had issues with the insert. We've got another sample, another type of sleeve. Factories working with other factories. Fulfillment was supposed to begin in November with this fulfillment schedule. Supposed to be done by the end of last year. Yeah, right? Go to the comment section. Yeah, they aren't happy, right? I don't know who this Dave is. Collaborator, right? Like collaborator, right? You always hear that within, for example, The Last of Us. The collaborator, he was working with the bad guys, right? 100% remote since before Christmas. Haven't been in the room with the creator, the owner of the company, Dan, in months. So while I have contact, no insight. You have contact, but no insight? Are you just not utilizing that contact? That is the most vague answer imaginable. That's worse than actually just not responding, almost. You have contact. Are you asking the questions? What questions have you asked? What's the answer to those questions? Squadoosh. 0. WTF. FTW. Whatever acronyms you want to throw in there, right? This has to be a huge just fail. Huge fail. And if we go back over here, you were supposed to have it in February of 2022. So even then, on that lying last update there, that was still 10 months overdue. We are now 15 months overdue, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I don't think you're ever going to get a game. I'm sorry. I don't think you're going to get one. So, there you go. That forkin' blows. So there we go. 2 years ago, right? Right. So I love doing this video. I love looking back and saying, what's things that I backed? What are things I didn't back? What things am I happy and sad that I didn't back? How do I feel about them now? Are they still even in your collection? Would you still even want them? Because we go through this phase of hotness and in, out, in, out, in, out. I want it to be in, stay forever. I'm getting better. Hopefully you are too. But hopefully this video, more than anything else, is an accountability video. Accountability buddy. You can call me that. Liege the accountability buddy. I don't know. Just keeping it real, I guess, as much as I can. I don't know. This is why I don't have many subscribers. He rambles too much. He's all over the place. Doesn't script things. It's what we get, folks. It's what we get. Don't know what to tell you. That's all I got. I'm rambling here at the end, like always. But yeah, played some good games tonight. Had a good time. Just had some fun. Good feeling overall. So, hope you're doing well. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. See you around. See you next month. I love doing this video. This is one of my favorite ones on the channel. Every single time I do it. Just looking, having fun with it. Boom! Shadow.